everyone, Travis Pfeiffer here bringing you another deck tech, and this is based on a category that I've been enjoying playing since Opus 8 when it was just in Mono Earth. Well, in Mono Light, Opus 11, we got some lightning cards that helped fill it out, and that is category Final Fantasy 15, and in particular, a brand new version of this that I've tried with this LunaFreya card that came out in Opus 12. Now, there has always been a LunaFreya backup since Opus 8, and I've always wanted to get that back up into a 15 deck because its cost gets reduced and it's got a really good effect. But she always clashed with everything else that was 15, predominantly now Earth Lightning. And so she's a water card, so I was like, well, how do we get this in here? But she's a really fun card. So, LunaFreya, you can dull one active category 15 forward, and then LunaFreya will gain 2,000 power till the end of the turn. Or you can dull 4 active category 15 forwards. You choose one forward and you put it into the break zone. That's really powerful because you're not breaking it, you're just placing it into the break zone. So there's very little that can get around it. However, it obviously requires a lot of 15 forwards. So how are we going to make that work? Well, we got a couple ways. I tested this deck out this weekend. It was really fun, and I have to say, I like this better with LunaFreya compared to just the Earth Lightning version. It's pretty incredible the amount of value she brings to it. So, how do we get her onto the field in this Earth Lightning deck? First of all, we have a copy of this Class 6 Moogle. He's a very cheap Lightning backup, but he can also tap for Water CP. So if we get him down, we can very easily tap him and bring LunaFreya out. What color fixing deck these days would be complete without Tyro? Tyro is everything you could want. EX Burst, he's going to grab any forward you desire. He can immediately grab the LunaFreya, and then he can tap for any element, so he's also going to fix that, plus his nice damage ability. So this is how we get her out. You could throw another one of these in here if you feel like you need more, but between the two of these, I've never had an issue getting the Water CP to get LunaFreya out. Now, how do we best take advantage of the fact that she has to dull active 15 forwards? You know, you don't want to spend your attacks just dulling it for LunaFreya's ability, so that is where our boy Ignis comes into play. That's it! I've come up with a new recipe. Ignis is a great EX burst that will search out a Noctis on entry, and, importantly, he gives every other category 15 forward, regardless of what they are, 1,000 power and brave. So, once your forwards are all brave because of Ignis, LunaFreya, you can attack with all your forwards, maintain their active state, and then LunaFreya will be able to, at any time, either dull one of them to pump her up, or dull 4 of them to remove a forward of your opponent's. Fantastic. It gives a deck that was already pretty good just this another level of threat, which is very useful. So, when Ignis comes in, he's going to search out Noctis. We have 3 copies of the 2 CP Noctis and 3 copies of the 3 CP Noctis from Opus 7, the Legend. I love both of these because they're an EX burst. This Noctis will reveal the top 2 cards of your deck when he enters and add a category 15 card to your hand. This deck has 40 category 15 cards in it, so he is basically guaranteed to hit you something. I think maybe I missed one single time, but that was the old version of this that had about 30 in here. With this new version, I've never missed with this Noctis. This Noctis, his damage 6 burst is incredible. He's very good against smaller forwards, so if you're running against things like Bart's Boko and they've got a bunch of little weenies coming at you, you're okay if Noctis takes damage because he can just use his fight ability to take him out, and then he can always protect himself. So I usually put out whichever one is good for the situation. And one of the benefits of the 2 CP Noctis is that he makes it very easy to bring in Gladiolus. Gladiolus becomes 2 CP cheaper when Noctis is on the field. Doesn't matter which Noctis, as long as there's one out there. So for 2 CP, you put out this Noctis, another 2 CP, this Gladiolus, and if you've got Ignis, you've got a 10k Brave, 6k Brave. It's really nice. Keep in mind, Gladiolus can only be paid with Earth CP, and sometimes that will hang me up where I'll just happen to have a handful of Lightning cards, and like I can only tap one of these for Earth, so that's unfortunate. But for the most part, he does his job, and he actually has a very underrated special. It's a bit expensive, but it does 7k to your opponent's entire board. So it's a pretty solid board wipe, and again, if he's got Brave from Ignis, he can attack first, and then on the stack, use his special ability. And let's not forget about Ignis' special either. Overwhelm is one of the best specials, probably the best special in this whole deck, and I think a really underrated special in the entire game. Because this deck is loaded with 15 forwards, and this will choose a forward and deal it 4,000 damage for every 15 forwards you have. If you have 3 forwards out, you're taking something out for 12k. That's fantastic. 2 people, 8k. And Ignis doesn't even need to dull to use it, so he can immediately hit that. It's a great, great special. Other 15 forwards we've got to help out are, branching into lightning, 3 copies of Glauca and 2 copies of Aranea. Aranea is a fantastic body. On damage 3, when she enters the field, she can pull back a lightning forward of cost 2 or less, play it right to the field. Now, in this deck, her only target is Glauca. But, again, just the way it's kind of worked out, very few times have I had it where I've got Aranea and I don't have the Glauca to recur. But even if you don't have Glauca, she has her threat at damage 6, which can give everything haste. And because she has First Strike, she is especially potent with Ignis, because a brave First Striker who's constantly just running into your opponent, they have to have some kind of straight break effect or something to just deal with her. Otherwise, she's just going to run over your opponent. She's fantastic. Filling out the lineup, we're going to introduce the Kingsglaive. We've got 3 copies of Nyx, 3 copies of Libertas, 3 copies of Crow, helping on the backup line, and 3 copies of Luce, also helping out the backup line. So, all of these are 15 characters, feeds into his ability. They'll all both get Brave and 1k off of Ignis. Libertas is a great EX burst that's going to get you back a 15 character from your break zone. You can get a crucial, whoever you need for crucial plays, or sometimes I'll pull back an extra copy of Ignis so I can just immediately overwhelm. Nyx is, the more I use this card, the more I love it. It can feel like a detriment at times because, oh, I've got to lose a character. But I'm telling you, it's worth it. To have Nyx hit the field, he breaks Luce or Crow, and then he's going to break one of their opposing forwards, and then you can either give him haste or you can dull a forward they control. Fantastic. I've used that multiple times. And it's anytime a job Kingsglaive goes to the break zone. So, like, let's say Nyx is on the field and they kill Libertas, Nyx's effect will trigger, you get to dull something, which is fantastic. Crow is great because she's the ideal target for Nyx. She's going to give you a forward back when she goes to the break zone, or you can self-tap her to break her and dull a forward, and if Nyx was already out, you could do that. Dull 2 things for Nyx. It's great. And Nyx, getting Brave off of Ignis, just makes him even more of a threat, because not only does he have this burst turn, now he's still sitting there as a blocker. Also, do not underrate Luce's effect. I don't use it a whole lot, but he's a cheap 2CB backup. You want to get him down early. And there are many times when the game is close and I just need to get rid of a key person. Yeah, I'll just tap him, break that person. And again, I did that with a game this weekend with Nyx. Luce, break that person. Now Nyx is going to dull that other person. Boom, I went in for the win. Very easy to overlook, but very powerful combo. Kingsglaive all work very well together. Now, we don't want to leave LunaFreya without any family, so her brother Ravis is going to help us out. 2 copies of him, EX Burst. This card is honestly the one I probably discard the most when I see it, because I really like him more as a finisher. When he comes in, he's going to automatically dull something. However, if he comes in and your opponent controls more forwards than you do, he'll get to dull 2 things, which can be difficult to resolve, but especially lately, like I was playing against my buddy Brandon, and he was using a Sid Privia, mid-Privia deck with Layla Viking, so he just got this massive board of forwards, so Ravis was always like, yep, dull 2 things on entry, and it's really nice, plus it's on an EX burst, and he fills out the category 15, so he'll get his Brave, and he's another Noctis target. Last, but certainly not least, for our 15 forwards, we have 1 copy of 5 CP Arden, and 1 copy of one of my favorite cards in the game, and that's 7 CP Arden. You're usually only going to use 1, and they're both in here just because they both fill a different situation. If you are running into, if you know you're fighting a Neo X Death deck, or, something else that they have a lot of Famfrit or Veritas or something, this Arden is great. Or maybe it's a Wind deck that they have a lot of straight break effects like Diabolos or Chaos Walker, because this Arden will come back into play at the end of the turn when he's broken or just removed by a summoner ability and it doesn't deal damage. He's a great way to keep recurring. He's a great way to at least somewhat stall Neo X Death, and his entry effect of keeping a forward from blocking or attacking till the end of the next turn, very great. And this Arden is, again, fantastic and can win a game by himself, depending on what you're against. If you're against a deck that has a lot of dull, he's not going to do so much because they'll just ignore him. But if they have a deck that's very damage-based, I went against an opponent using a fire deck this weekend, and he dropped the new Philia on me, which does 10k to the whole board. So Arnea died, Ignis died, Noctis died, but guess who was still there? Arden, and Arden would go on to win that game because they knew they just had to do something to deal with him. So one of each, and just use which one you feel is appropriate for the situation, or you can always just throw them away for CP. So those are all the forwards we have. Next, we have 2 copies of Kusith. Another burst. This deck has a very high burst count. I believe it's over 20. And so he's another way to get that. He's great recursion. He can get you back any of their specials. If a crucial piece, went to the break zone before you were ready for it to, he can pull that back. Great card. 1 copy of this Ramu. This Ramu, I honestly have a love-hate relationship with. What I love about it is it's so cheap. It's 2 CP, so it's very easy to just pitch a single card from hand and blast your opponent with it. And again, depending on who they have, he's great. If they have a bunch of 9Ks, he's not very good because there's just nothing else in this deck you can combo with him ping-wise. However, if they bring in that Mid-Previa, or the Layla Viking, or some other card that's 8K or below, a Ferris, a Zidane, and Iris, anything of those natures, he's a really cheap way to just pop them off. And he's a burst, so on occasion, you'll get lucky. 1 copy of Bahamut Zero. What more can you say about Bahamut Zero? He's your finisher. He's going to stall you a turn. He's going to drop all their forwards. Basically make them skip an attack phase. Great card. You could easily replace this with a 7 CP Odin or the 3-drop Ramu. The only thing is, again, there's not a lot of ping stuff in this deck, so that one just doing 7k doesn't feel as good. So it's really whatever you want to fit that slot, but I like him for the burst. Finally, rounding out our backup line, we have 2 copies of Class 10th Moogle. Pretty much the backup you want to see turn 1 every time. He's cheap, he can go down immediately. And then other than LunaFreya, he's got your colors for the whole deck. He's going to Earth or Lightning, whatever you need. 2 copies of Cindy, which will add to the 15 count of the deck. When Cindy comes in, she's going to grab you a 15 forward, 2 15 forwards, add them to your hand, whichever you want. Usually the most common combo is you'll get a 2 CP Noctis and a 2 in the Gladiolus, and that way you can get out 2 guys pretty quickly for 2 CP. Or if it's time for Nyx to come out, you can go fetch him. You can fetch that LunaFreya, whatever you want to do. And last but certainly not least is the last of the Chocobros, which is Prompto. So again, Prompto is especially good against decks that want to go wide against you, that same Mid-Previa deck. Prompto is great because he often had 4 or more forwards on the field, so Prompto is going to take out 2 of them. Now, if you want to put in Shantoto in place of this, absolutely go ahead. Shantoto is great. Shantoto is another way to color fix for LunaFreya. We'll give you another source of water. And Shantoto is absolutely more reliable than Prompto. However, I just really like the 15 theme of this deck, and I just couldn't bring myself to let go of Prompto. And even if you don't get his first effect for the RFG, if there's 4 or more forwards, you play him, you break something, feels great. It's still very useful. So, here's the deck. What you want to do with LunaFreya, once you get her out there, ideally, once you get 4 people, and hopefully you've got Ignis with Brave, you can just keep attacking, pushing damage, and then I would not use her ability to break until their turn. I would always wait until their attack phase, see what they do. They might bring out a new forward that, had you used her ability on your turn, oh no, now I can't deal with that thing. And ideally, what you want to do too is, like, when they go to attack, whatever they do, if you're able to, you can block it with someone, and then on the stack, dull your 4 guys, and whatever forward you want, just put right into the break zone. Very thematic too. LunaFreya works with this Arden, if you were facing him, because she doesn't break him, she just puts him into the break zone, so she can actually get around his protection. But that is what I normally do. Or what I've done as well is that, let's say we'll spot remove Ignis. Ignis is always a huge target because no one wants you to have that 1k Brave. So they'll do a summon on Ignis. Okay, well, on the way out, I can dull Ignis, and we're going to boost LunaFreya by 2k. Will that always save you? Maybe, but sometimes it has made a difference. My opponent party attacked with Layla Viking into LunaFreya, forgetting that it is not a tap ability. It does not have the tap symbol. It says the word dull, so it can be used immediately. So they thought, oh, LunaFreya will trade with the Layla Viking. I blocked with LunaFreya, dulled herself. She went up to 7k, killed both of them. It was a great benefit for me. So the deck has always been fun outside of her, but I have to say, putting her in, I've really enjoyed the spice that she brings to it. And again, I love cards like this because it is this threat of, you've got to do something about this. If you have enough forwards to use her second ability, your opponent has to do something or they will lose. They're just going to lose on the spot like that. Now, as far as some tech choices, this new Noctis is very good. He can be discarded for either color, which is nice, and when he enters, he's going to get you back a category 15 forward other than card name Noctis. Obviously, there's an incredible ton of targets for him in this deck, and then also if he party attacks, all the forwards you control will gain 2,000 power and haste. Honestly, I just prefer this 3 CP Noctis for the burst, and I find it difficult to get the haste effect off because, again, people don't want you to do that, so they'll often target this Noctis. So my personal preference is the 3 CP Legend. However, this is a great tech in. You're not doing anything wrong by putting this in. If you prefer this, absolutely swap this out. I would probably recommend keeping the 2 CP one in there. And a word about those 2 Noctises too. I know it might seem like a lot having 6. Trust me, you will go through them very quickly. This one's got a special. Ignis is going to bring one out. The amount of bursts. Trust me, I'm always playing and replaying Noctis because people will get rid of it. Now, the one other thing I wanted to mention was Regis. You've got the backup searching Regis, and you've got the new multi-element legend Regis. This card is fantastic. This is the only copy of it I own, though, and I don't really like putting him in here without being able to use the Royal Sigil, and I feel like you wouldn't want to run the forward and the backup. And the other thing, too, is while this deck is great, there isn't a whole lot in here that I would want to die and then replay it with the Regis. The lines are there. LunaFreya can technically put your own forward into the break zone. So you could have LunaFreya, put Aranea, put Nyx into the break zone, have this Regis come in, and then boom, he brings them both back, bring out Glauca, have Nyx use his effect. But I just didn't feel like he fit nearly as well in here. I like this Regis much better with a Legend Earth Cecil or the new Opus 12 Gilgamesh. I think he fits much better with those cards. And as for the backup, you could put it in as another form of search, but I feel like this Regis and Cindy are a little bit redundant. They feel like they accomplish a similar thing, and I just prefer Cindy for the increased value, not only off the search, but also her 2 action abilities. So that's the deck. It's really fun to play. LunaFreya leads the way, and I don't know, there's just something about using the 15 characters together that I just have a really great time doing. Let me know what you think. I will put a link to the description in the comments below, and that's all. Have a good one.